Good evening and good morning to all who has joined in today's special 18th Leadership Talk. I, on my personal behalf, as well as on behalf of the Academy, would like to welcome you all in today's Leadership Talk. Being a Sunday evening in India and early morning in US, I really appreciate all of you who have joined on the weekend. Thank you for that. And I'd like to just give you a very brief glimpses of the about the academy, about the journey that academy has taken over the last almost 2 years. Now we are almost going to complete 2 years. So over the last 20 months, the academy has been involved or evolved, I would say, and organized various lectures, leadership talks by several eminent personalities across the world. And this small ripple in the leadership domain, created or let's say founded by Dr. Ghosh at IIT Kharagpur, has created an impact, and we are moving forward. Now we started journey with slow speed. Now we are accelerating our journey, and we are starting joint certificate program, corporate programs, and also the leadership programs for the students for IIT Kharagpur, as well as we are thinking to uh, do this one for students from across the world as well. So that we are going to do, and with these, and also the academy is based on 3PI model, which is a well celebrated by Dr. Ghosh and put forward by Dr. Ghosh in that. And today's about the speaker, I would like to request Sri Puran Dangji, who is our life fellow of IIT Kharagpur, who is also the member of our board of advisory of PGL, and to request sir for introducing the today's speaker. Sir, over to you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen in America, in India, and all over the world. It's my distinct and great honor to introduce my friend of 40 years, Professor Balbir Sehag. He is a distinguished scholar of economics and a professor retired from Amherst, UMass, University of Massachusetts, and now he is emeritus. You know, he did his degree in economics from Punjab University, Chandigarh, and he passed the exam of Indian Economic Service, which is like IAS, IFS in economics. But at the same time, he got the University Grants Commission scholarship to come to IIT and MIT here in Cambridge and do his PhD. And with the advice of the most distinguished professor of economics, Professor Samuelson, he started his journey. Here, he didn't row the boat in a usual way. He thought of something special, which is not just the stereotype economics, but something which is unique, and that was to create the unknown hidden treasure of economics in Chanakya and Kautilya. And in this, he is one of the pioneers who has written a number of papers, and he has gone into details of our heritage in such a subtle way that, as somebody remarked, that if Chanakya was here today, his work is so stupendous and such revealing that he would have gotten a Nobel Prize. But today, my objective is that, again, that Professor Sehag chose a subject which I'm sure will be of interest to all of you. I don't want to take too much time because there are other speakers. I want to introduce my great friend, Professor Balbir Sehag, to you for his comments and for his words and for his lecture. Thank you, Balbir ji. आवाज नहीं आ रही.
Please unmute yourself.
Muted you, so you is that okay?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Oh, one second.
Okay, now you can ask.
Sadhana Pranam. Can you hear me now? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Sadhana Pranam. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to share my ideas, whatever little I know. And thank you, Puranji. You are really my Rajarishi. And until today, there are two friends I met for the first time, two gentlemen. And the first one introduced that I am from IIT, the world-renowned institute. And then I asked the other guy, आपकी तारीफ कहता आज तक तो किसी ने की नहीं. So this was the first time Varun ji introduced me to the whole world basically. Thank you so much. Now today we'll talk a little bit. Kautilya had so much contribution in so many areas. So today we'll focus just on two concepts, Yogashem and Rajarishi. The word Yogashem first time appeared in the Gita. Vedvyas talks about Yogashem, that Lord Krishna, he takes care of his disciples, I mean his devotees. He called Yogashem, that whatever they don't have, they will get it, and whatever they have, that will be preserved. Yogashem, peaceful enjoyment of prosperity. And the word Rajarishi, Kautilya got from the Rig Veda. There they talk about a sage leader. He called that Rajarishi. So these two words are very powerful words. And what Kautilya says that before him, the kings, they were interested in glory, but not anything for the public. Even the Mahabharata, they were fighting for their own share in the kingdom, not to do anything for the public. So he changed all that perspective. He said that it's a responsibility of the Rajarishi to uplift the people, to bring prosperity to them, make sure there's no crime and the kingdom is safe from any aggression or anything like that. So he introduced for the first time the concept in the real meaning of Yogashem, that it is the king's responsibility to take care of the public. And he explained that how he should take care of that Yogashem. So he believed in backward induction. That what is the goal? Like if you want to go to the Mars, how to go to the Mars? If we go straight from Earth, it will be very difficult. So have a base on the moon. And then from moon, you can easily go to the Mars. And how to go to the moon? Well, we all know we are all on the moon right now, or Chandrayaan 3. So we all of us feel like we are on the moon. That is uplifting the whole nation. So to go to the moon, we can go to the International Space Station, or we can use Chandrayaan or something like that. So this is called backward induction. So he started with Yogashem, that how to make sure the public is rich and they are secure and safe at home, crime-free society. So he laid out several steps. That the first step, that this is our goal. Then what do we need to have prosperity? That we should have productive land, lot of resources like to cultivate the land, waterworks, better roads, everything, the infrastructure. We should have that. Now, to have infrastructure and everything else, what should we do? We have to have the property rights. If people don't have property rights, if there's no rule of law, why anybody will go to school or save anything or do anything? So that's the first step, that these are the land, capital, that's the machines and all that, that to promote them, what should we have? We should have rule of law and good governance, because rule of law makes sure that what you have, you can keep it. And the good governance means you increase the rate of return. So good governance means providing infrastructure and then also having good policies which take care of the future and all that, very productive. Now, how do you decide on a project that this is the most profitable project? And that's where his second contribution, which is he developed accounting for the first time in the world. So he's really the father of accounting. I wrote my first paper on accounting actually, and I sent it to an accountant, a leading authority on accounting, and he was delighted and he made sure that it got published. So it was published. It was my first paper on accounting. Because if you don't know accounting, how can you decide where to invest money? So he made sure that the rate of return should be high, good policies, infrastructure, and also rule of law. Because if there is no rule of law, then nobody will do anything like in Yemen or in Afghanistan. Why anybody will go to school even? Because there is no, so that no gain, no pain. If a person doesn't expect anything, why would he work hard? So he reversed everything. Now we hear nowadays, no pain, no gain. But he reverses, no gain, no pain. So he introduced the incentives for the first time. He did not believe in any force, any coercion or anything like that. Give incentive to people, persuade them, make them ethical. That's how you prosper. So that was his third step, how to take care of that. And then he came to the last stage, that to do all good things, if the person, those who decide everything, implement everything, if they are not ethical, then nothing will work out. So that's where the role of the Raj Rishi comes in. That if the Raj Rishi, there's a whole qualification of the Raj Rishi, that he should be foresighted. Foresight is very important. Like we know right now that in 40, 50 years, there may be no snow in the Himalayas. How we are going to have our rivers? We will not have water, enough water. So we got to decide now what is going to happen in 50 years, how we should have access to water at that time. So we should really invest in like seeding the clouds or something like that. We have to make sure that we have water at that time. This is foresight. Secondly, if we don't prepare in advance, that's like China or someone else might invade us. We got to have an army ready. And I just went to Kashmir in June, and our soldiers, they are really well trained, very enthusiastic, very patriotic. We talked to so many of them. It was just wonderful. This is really wonderful thing. Modi should get credit for that. He deserves that credit. Instead of terrorists taking over, now the tourists are taking over. It was so nice going from Srinagar to Kargil. What a beautiful scene. We drove along that way and all the way to Ladakh. So it was a beautiful experience. And I encourage everybody to experience that joy. So unless this Raj Rishi, he is foresighted and also an economist. Because Kautilya was the first one who introduced that you need elephants to catch elephants. That if you don't have capital, how can you grow? So he made sure that a lot of investment takes place, a lot of that. For example, he made sure that only about 25% of the tax revenue will go to salaries, other that is called nowadays current account, and 75% will go to investment in infrastructure, creating new towns, creating markets, creating wider roads, all kind of basically irrigation facilities, so on. He went on and on. That unless you have good projects, and he knew accounting, how to decide that. All those things he recommended at that time. Good incentives. Now let me come to the basic thing. What is unique about our society, about our culture? He decided all the activities in 4 things. There's a graph I just made to all of you. And there, like Adam Smith said, that if you are taking care of yourself, then basically you are taking care of everybody. That's not true. So he decided that there are 4 columns. By the way, he knew combinations. He knew actually more math than even the high schoolers today. That's amazing. Look at my paper, one of the papers I have written on exploration of the origin of mathematical economics, that how advanced he was. He knew that basically difference equations, not differential, but difference. So he was well advanced. He was really a modern man in ancient body. So there he divides into 4. This is my articulation of his ideas. He did not have that the table, but I created that. But his ideas, I'm not making up my own ideas. I don't have that kind of insight. I have all the tools of analysis from MIT. I learned all of those, and from Chandigarh. But the insight what he has that I did not have until I read it. That's how I said, wow, this is something amazing. It was lying on my desk, I have a lot of books, maybe 1,000 books. And I never read it. I never thought about it, that it will have this kind of wisdom. We talk about knowledge and information and all that, but wisdom, that is his first chapter in the Arthashastra, on wisdom, how important wisdom is. Second is ethics, and then economics. So there's a ranking in his thinking. So the first column is when there is no conflict between the common good and the private good, private interest, public interest and the private interest, no conflict, like having a lot of industries, infrastructure, whatever, all kind of things, mostly about 90% of the things, there is no conflict between public and the private interest. But there is conflict in, like, to serve the motherland, to give charity, to do good things, because that comes from the pocket of the individual. So that is against the personal interest, but it is in the public interest to serve the motherland. So that's where Kautilya persuaded people that be generous, show compassion, and serve the motherland. He insists on the moral duty of the individual. So that is where there's a conflict between personal interest and the public interest. He tries to persuade. He never uses force, just persuasion, incentives, giving some kind of titles, some decoration to people who do good things. And then the third column, that is where the financial manipulation, monopoly, monopsony. Monopsony is when there is one buyer. Like in the countryside, the merchant used to buy all the food grains and then sell as a monopolist. So he was aware of that, and he was very particular that consumers should be protected and the producers should be protected. So he introduced basically, at that time, a minimum floor price, what we nowadays have. But the government has now minimum floor price for the crops. Now, that's where I wonder that whether he was in the 4th century BC or he was much earlier. Because I wrote a paper on the Indus Valley civilization. It should be coming out soon. Now there, they had buffer stocks. Kautilya got the idea from them. Quite possible, because all the measurements in the Arthashastra, they are from the Indus Valley civilization. So I think, I'm not into that kind of business to decide things, but I think personally that he was much, much earlier than the 4th century BC, because 4th century BC is given by the Britishers or the foreigners, and they don't like to accept that. Because when I wrote my first article, they questioned that he was not an economist, and that too in 4th century BC in India. Are you kidding? So I really had to change that to get that article published. To instead of saying economist, that he was a thinker, ancient thinker. Otherwise, they will not publish it. So this is their thinking even today. They don't want to accept that anybody other than them could be a father of economics or father of medicine or father of science or mathematics or anything. They will not accept that. So the third column, or in that cell, in the table, that is where you need good laws. And by the way, he was the first person to introduce the law. Even Professor Ambedkar, he gives him credit for that. That's much, much before than the British or the European even thought about that. So he's a father of laws, of secular law. So the third column, that people should have good laws and they should be implemented effectively so that monopoly, financial manipulation, all those kind of things can be stopped, because those things, that is private gain, but at the expense of the public gain, public interest. But the fourth column, that is really unique to the Indian civilization, because all these murders, rape, subjugation, slavery, just name it, discrimination. Why they are there? Because this fourth column is against public interest, against the personal interest. Why they are still there? And that's where our culture has been really unique. Starting from Gita says that anger, lust, greed, these are gates of hell. And then our physician Charak came, he said those are bad for health. And then finally, Kautilya comes along and he says, not only forget about the hell they create, here the person who has them suffers not only in the perlok, but right here in this lok. So we should, all this conceited, hatred, jealousy, greed, all these things, is particularly he singles out Raman of all the people, and that he was so conceited. He thought that nobody can defeat him. And he ruined not only himself, but the whole country he ruined. So conceited on all these hatred and other things. He mentioned even the names of the kings who were destroyed by them. And he also mentions the kings who were very ethical and had self-discipline over these things, how they survived and prospered, and even today we remember them for their good deeds. So this fourth column, so why it is still it is against the public interest, against the private interest, but why it happens? If you remember Ramalingam, he was the chairman of Satyam Computers or something like that. He was cooking the books and finally he was caught. And what was his first statement? That when you are riding a tiger, you don't know how to get off. Well, to begin with, why do you start riding a tiger? Because those who are angry, those who are greedy, or after lust, they lose their mind. They lose their ability to process information. They don't see the consequences of what they are doing. And they hurt themselves and the whole society. Similarly, addiction. Kautilya talks about that. And he talks about all these other things that stay away them, control them. And that's where our unique culture comes in play. That be ethical, have restraint over these kind of destructive emotions so that you don't commit those kind of things. So our whole society is based on ethics, which no one else has that. Because, and he mentioned what are those virtues. He starts with non-violence, then truthfulness, because if the society is truthfulness, then that builds trust. Right now, you talk to anybody, why should I not cheat when the others are going to cheat me? That's a wrong start. You do your best. Don't cheat anyone, and nobody will cheat you in back. It's a matter of time. It will take over. So this ethical deficit leads to the trust deficit. That trust deficit leads to a lot of other wrong things. And the employer thinks that the employee is not putting his 100%, and the employee thinks that they are not getting their fair share, and there are strikes and destruction, all kind of those things. So we should have the ethics. Go back to our real culture, ethics, the Vedic culture, because Kautilya was a Vedic man. He promoted as much as he could. He never suggested any law which was not ethical and efficient. And we should have those kind of laws and get a lead and inspiration from Kautilya. So this fourth column is really truly unique. So that's why he is insisting that a Raj Rishi, he should have self-control over all these emotions. He should be virtuous, and he should be foresighted, and also an economist. Because how you'll bring prosperity, you should understand the basic concept of economics. So he's all about that. Because the modern economics, there's a whole page I given in that my second that file I sent. That modern economics starts with that whether you are a consumer or you are a producer or you are a politician, you try to maximize your own utility, your own self-interest, nothing else. All those commitments are based on contracts, not on any ethical concepts, because our culture is different. Like Tulsidas says in the Ramayana, Raghupati read Sada Chali Aayi, Pran Jaye, Par Bachan Na Jaye. So we don't believe in contract. We believe in our promise, keeping our promise. That's our culture. That's our Raj Rishi. That whatever you promise, you fulfill it, no matter what. So this is our culture, and we should really go back to it. And that's where national pride comes in. When our scientists, they developed the Chandrayaan and for the first time landed on that side of the moon, the whole nation is proud of that achievement. And how did they achieve? Because they were not just working for money, they were working for the nation. So national interest should be the top priority in every mind. And whatever good you can do to each other, that's how a nation progresses. Not by cheating each other. The milkman adds water, the doctor gives only half the dose. That's not how we prosper. We prosper by truthfulness, following our ethics, and really not just the moon. We take the whole universe, explore the whole universe. That's how we progress. That's how we think. So Raj Rishi, he has lofty ideals. He knows philosophy, but he's not an idle philosopher. So wisdom, that's a foresightedness. Wisdom has many components. Foresightedness is one of them, that you see what is coming and you prepare in advance, whether it's against fire, floods, famine, whatever, or moral decay, so that you prepare in advance, people don't become unethical. But far-sighted, because your tomorrow depends on what you do today. What you reap, what you sow today. So this is far-sighted. So far-sighted, foresighted, and insighted. Insight is also very important. Like in 2000, during Clinton time, 1993 or 94, there was a banking law that the banks are not allowed to invest in any public enterprise or something like that, Glass-Steagall Act. and that nothing has happened, no bank has failed in the last 30, 40 years. So we don't need that. So they removed that, and the 2008 financial meltdown happened. So there is a story I wrote a paper at that time that a driver, he fell into a ditch and he complained to the city and that why don't you put a sign? And the mayor said that we had a sign here for 20 years. Nobody fell. So we removed the sign because it was not needed. So that is the insight or lack of insight. So wisdom has many dimensions. So far side, foresight, and insight, and also perspective. So this is what Kotala starts with, and then he comes to ethics, and then to economics, other subject, and so on. So, okay, thank you. So, a lot of other things I wish I could talk. So, a Rajarishi, he takes care of the not just the growth part, but a lot of other things like rule of law, and that's where the administration of justice comes in. So I wrote a paper on that. That has been downloaded 32,000 times. Administration of justice during 4th century BC. And what he does, what is justice? That whether it's your own son, king's own son, or an enemy, there should be, the punishment should be certain, impartial, and in proportion to the crime committed. So he lays down the cardinal principles of justice. So, and how to implement all that. And at that time, there was no home insurance or any kind of insurance. So the state made sure that if somebody steals something, that the state will compensate if they can't find the thief. So it was that kind of recommendation at that time, which put in the rights that the people should be protected from every calamity. And then, of course, national security. He's very big on that. And they are all together. That he starts with the thing that poverty is death while living. And second sentence, he says that if a country is not free, it cannot prosper. And we know that when Britishers took over, whatever the income was, it did not increase by a single paisa for their 200 years. So he was right that you cannot prosper under a foreign rule. And then he goes to the third thing, that a poor country cannot defend because it does not have the resources. So that's how he intertwined national security and prosperity. And in between comes the rule of law, that is administration of justice. If people don't follow the rule of law, then of course nothing will come out because people will lose faith and they will not invest, they will not do anything. So all of these three, there is not a single author in economics and political science anywhere who could think of the whole system, not just the economic system, but also the national security and the justice. He linked all three, that how they are interdependent. That's a unique perspective and very broad perspective. What kind of mind he had? I think much larger than Einstein's. He could figure out all these three. That's just amazing. And there are a lot of things. I've written at least 31 papers now on Kautilya. And every time I write a paper, I have to go through all the whole Arthashastra. And every time I find something new. That's just amazing. So I can never reach the depth he had. I know all the tools. After all, I got a PhD from MIT. I'm supposed to know. But that kind of insight, that broad perspective, I lacked until I read the Arthashastra. There are two things which I must say very humbly. I used to think I was the smartest person, but that was before I met my wife. And the second thing, I used to think I got the best degree in the world, but that was before I read the Arthashastra. That's a really awakening. And Kautilya, he was very humble, but learned even from a child. That was his thing. And that's where another dimension of his thinking comes in. That we say knowledge is power. Yes, it is power. But sharing is a better power, more powerful. And that's where I give one of the paragraphs there, that one person knows something, the other person knows another thing, the third knows something else. Keep them together, bring them together. So this pooling of information and knowledge, that's how society progresses. But that's again the Raja Rishi comes in, our ethic comes in. If I know that when I share my whatever I know, with sharing means making it explicit. And that is one of the things. I wrote another paper. Maybe I'll send it on Vedic or Vedas. Not only they are knowledge and wisdom, but they're much more than that. They started the process of sharing information, and that changed the whole world. If you don't share, you die with it. Nobody will know what you knew. So it is the sharing with our rishis, our sages. They started sharing their knowledge, and that's how we grew. Others, they got inspiration from them. They started sharing. The whole world changed. That credit goes to those our 414 seers who wrote the Rig Veda. So this is what Kautilya is saying. Share what you have so that together we can have a brighter future, a better decision. So this is very important part in Arthashastra. And I gave a paper many years ago, international conference, and they were talking about knowledge management. And if you look at the history, in the 50s, the data collection became important. Or data management is the key to success. Then information, it became the story that if you have information management, you are at the top. Then in the 90s came the knowledge management, that if you have knowledge management, you can succeed. And then I said, all these depend on wisdom. So it should be, management should be ethics-based and wisdom-based. That's how you prosper. You become a Rajrishi. And that's another part I added there, that if you are a CEO, a Rajrishi CEO, a Karam Yogi, who puts other people's stakeholders' interests ahead of his own interests, that's a Karam Yogi, a Rajrishi. Then what will happen in the society? The doctors will not prescribe unnecessary opiates. The pharmacists, they will not sell those opiates. The stockbrokers will not push for wrong things. The banks will not take unnecessary risk. Workers will not shirk or steal. All those things, and that's called Kautilya's ethical surplus. That is society based on ethics and a society is based on self-interest. The difference between them is ethical surplus. And that is in hundreds of billions of dollars. And for the whole world, it is $1 trillion. I gave some rough estimate in one of my papers. So Kautilya's contribution and our civilization, our culture is unique, truly unique. And if you follow them, instead of, we should use our akal, not nakal. And we can go far ahead than we have been. And look, our future looks very bright. I'm really very happy to say that we are in good hands. The country is moving forward, and we will achieve whatever our goals are. And what the BJP said a few years back, Sabka Vikas, Sabka Saath. So with that shared prosperity, that's what Kautilya talked about 2,500 years ago. That how to engineer shared prosperity. That should be our goal. That should be our common goal. Selfless work, and we can do it. Let us put it together. That's my humble presentation. And do I have more time?
You would like to
Do I
add some
have
few?
time?
Yeah, so you can go for a few minutes more.
Ask questions. Yeah, I can
I
go
think,
on
yeah,
and
through
on.
question answers, I think that'll be great through question answer session, sir. So I think now I request Mr. Pranav Patel, who would like to introduce him. He is right now Senior Executive Officer at the PG Academy of Leadership at IIT Kharagpur. So Pranav, over to you for quick summary, and then we'll go for the question and answer session.
Thank you, Ashley sir, and Balbir sir. It's a pleasure and an honor to listen to you. Being an Kautilya enthusiast myself, who have studied the Kautilya Arthashastra a number of times personally, it's really a pleasure to listen to you. And what an honor, because I had an opportunity to present a paper on Yogakshema, which I wrote it from a perspective of good governance, and I got a chance to present it at the first International Yoga Day conference in New York. So, and you touching base upon Yogakshema as a subject from Kautilya Arthashastra is really a superb thing for me to listen to. And so yes, some of the points which you touch base upon, where the sutra says, "Praja sukhe sukham raja, praja namta hite hitam." Yeah, so in the benefit of the people lies the benefit of the king. Whoever wherever it's your personal benefit is not your benefit. It's only people's benefit which the king or the leader is supposed to look into, and that's what the philosophy of Yogakshema always tells us. You spoke about rule of law against rule of ethics. I mean, your book by itself is a great read in that context, where you said, an ounce of ethics is much more important than a ton of law. And that's where ethics really become very, very important from that perspective, and from the Kautilyan perspective, especially so. So other points which I really loved, where you touch base upon the 4 pillars. The first sutra of Kautilya Arthashastra mentions this: Anvikshiki Trayi Varta Dandaniti Cheti Vidyaha. So Anvikshiki, Trayi Varta, and Dandaniti. Wisdom, ethics, economics, and obviously political science are the 4 things, 4 pillars which we talk of. And then when you spoke about that, connecting it to Rajarishi, absolutely, it was very wonderful to learn and understand that perspective in that context also. And obviously the concept of ethical surplus, we all would look forward to see a society which is built upon ethical surplus, where we think of others, where we think of the society at large than just thinking about self and our own interest. That's when Kautilya's input comes in as very, very, very important. And so finally, the last thing which you mentioned, yes, I would say Kautilya Arthashastra is just not a book, it's an encyclopedia in itself. Every time we just open any page of that, there is a different perspective and an insight which we receive out of that. So thank you very, very much, sir. It's an honor and a pleasure to listen to you, and your books have been real guide, and your work has always been helping us working more and more on Kautilya's understanding as well. So thank you, sir. Pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you.
I would request Commander Jetli to please come in and help us navigate through in terms of taking some question answers.
Thank you, Balbir sir. It was a real great talk, very enlightening for all of us, especially for me, who hasn't read Kautilya Shastra at all. So I'm very, very ignorant. I've just heard a few quotations, though I'm a fan of Kautilya, but never got the opportunity to go deep into that. So today, after listening to you, it's really great. Sir, first of all, before I ask the questions which others have raised, I want to ask one question from my side. So these days, there is too much focus on people that they should be legally correct. Unfortunately, all these legal books, they have been made by human beings like, people like me only. So many times, I feel it is more important that ethically we should be correct. Morally, we should be correct. But then, if legally you are not correct, they will put you behind the bar. So what does Kautilya say about this, and what do you say about this, sir?
Kautilya was very clear about it, that ethics is first, and there should be no law which contradicts ethics. So he was very explicit, and he introduced law only as a complement to the ethics part. He did not replace it. Like the Westerns, they've replaced it. Now nobody talks about ethics in any constitution. So constitution without ethics is just a paper, a thin. There are no guardrails. So this is one of the things I mentioned in another article, that there are internal constraints and there are external constraints. Constitution is external constraints. Ethics is internal constraints. And you need both of them to have a democratic system or a functioning democracy or functioning system. You need both of them. Because even if 99% of the people are ethical and 1% are not, then you need the law. You've got to take care of them. So you need both of them. And don't pass any law which is unethical. So he wanted to promote ethics and efficiency at the same time. Like in America, whenever a lady delivered a baby, they used to send her home on the same day. They had to pass a law that they have to keep her at least for 48 hours. Now let us go back to Kautilya. He said that a cow, after delivering a calf, she got to stay there for 7 days and free. No grazing charges. That is ethics and law. So we are very different. Our society is based on giving. Western culture is based on grabbing. That's a fundamental difference. And this contract business, they start with the concept that the other party is going to not abide by the contract. So they hire a lot of lawyers, they put all kind of clauses, and they make money in between. And that's how the transaction cost goes up. Our society, that we believe what I said earlier, pran jaye par bachan na jaye. So we are ethical, we believe in ethical commitments, not in legal commitments. Okay, so that's the basic difference.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, one question is, in India, things have changed over a period of time. Unfortunately, not many people know about Kautilya. In our colleges, universities, the Kautilya's Arthashastra is not being taught. 1947, we got the independence, but somehow these things were kept, in the background only. So what do you suggest should be done now, sir, at least?
It's a strange situation. I've gone to so many places, Jaipur, Agra, Hyderabad, Delhi, many places. I gave a lot of lectures. And the first thing they say that we cannot pay for your transportation. Can you believe that? The foreigners come, they pay from all the way from America, London to India. And
Correct.
I want to travel from Delhi to Hyderabad, and the first thing they said that we cannot pay. And I tell them, did I ask you that? Because I've given up my tenured position to write this. You think I'm going to beg for a few $100s? No.
Correct.
So I travel there at my own expense. Nobody's there. They are not willing to pay a penny. And I wrote my 2 books. I don't get any royalties. I told the publisher, you give to charity, not to me. So I don't know what they are doing, but I don't get any penny. In fact, in my village, my mother was uneducated. And I wanted to make sure that every girl in my village have access to education. So with our own money, we spent 70 lakh rupees in 2002 and built a whole school for girls, higher secondary school from 6th grade to 11th grade. And there are now 300 girls, and there is 82% passing rate, graduation. And last year, there were 48 girls in the senior year. All of them passed, and 3 of them made in the merit list, the university list. And the whole village, they opposed at the time not to build a school. And now they celebrated that with a parade in their honor. The whole village is transformed. This is just amazing, because what I learned in my experience, to understand the meaning of education, you have to be educated already. And if someone is uneducated, how are you convince that person? It is a challenge. And it took me several years to persuade them that you need a school here. Now we are thinking of building a college. Now they are begging me to have a college. And yes, I have committed them that I will build a college. You take the permission from the government, and I will spend all my money, whatever it takes. 1 crore, 2 crore, 3 crore, whatever it takes, I will make it. So please get involved in social activities. Somebody asked me, where do you live? Well, you tell me where I live. But what do you mean? Well, my feet are in America, my heart is in Bharat, and my head is in the clouds. You tell me where I live. So that's what I try to do, my little contribution to the nation, which sent me here, gave me everything I needed.
Great, sir. That's really nice to know that your heart is in Bharat. We are
Yes.
really, we bow our head to you, sir.
I've been here 50 years in America, and I'm still Indian citizen.
Oh, acha. You are Indian citizen, sir. Oh,
I'm an
great.
Indian person.
That's really great to know that. Hats off to you, sir. Sir, these days in India, 30% reservation bill has been passed for the ladies in Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha. So ladies will be 30% in our Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha from 2029 onwards, and all the assemblies also. What does Kautilya talk about this? The so-called women's rights, you call it, or their role in the society?
He doesn't talk much about the role in society, but what he talks about for the first time in 4th century BC, he talks about laws against sexual harassment. Can you imagine that? Because there were a lot of widows, they needed work, and government gave them work to the childless ladies or widows. And they were, at the time, they were doing spinning work, some cotton textile or whatever. And the superintendent who was supposed to check on them or get the goods from them, he made laws that he's not supposed to talk and he is not supposed to even look at their faces, and he will be punished. So he had, at that time, that advanced thinking that they should not be harassed. They're not begging anything, they are working to get the pay. And the supervisor, whoever that was not doing any favor to them. And then also against child labor. At that time, of course, the concept was very novel. Nobody could think of laws against child labor. So he is against that. And he believed in workers' union. He believed in consumer protection. So he was very liberal. And of course, at that time, sorry to say it, but there was prostitution. But even they had the rights that you cannot abuse them.
Correct.
So he was very liberal.
Great, sir. There is one more question. It says India had so many prime ministers till now. Whom do you consider the greatest Raj Rishi?
That's a difficult question. I would say Modi ji, Dr. Manmohan Singh, and our president, ex-president Abdul Kalam. Those are unique people, very honest to the penny, very simple. Actually, former president, late president Abdul Kalam, I sent a paper to him on governance. And to my surprise, he answered it with so kind words. That was amazing that he found the time. And to a person like me, a villager basically, sending back a nice letter. And Modi ji and Manmohan Singh, they are very honest people.
Great, sir. Great, sir. Thank you, sir. Now, from the audience, any question direct by anybody? Raise your hand. Yes, sir. Sushil Bhatia ji, please unmute yourself.
Professor Sehag, first of all, great presentation. So my question is, I read somewhere, he says in the book in economics, a person should not be too honest. Straight trees are cut first, and honest people are always screwed first. How do you correlate that with ethics that you were talking about, or legality?
Yes. Very important. Good question. There are two things he separates. That when it comes to the domestic economy ethics, his approach is people-centric and, of course, foresighted. Okay, when you deal with the internal things between us, you should be very ethical, very trustworthy. But when you deal with the foreigners, no way. Then the self-interest, nations comes first. No emotions, no nothing. No ethics comes in the way. So that's where he says unethical is okay if it's our freedom is at stake. Do anything. Because if you lose freedom, you lose everything. You lose your conscience. Not only you become poor, but you become totally dependent on someone else. And that's where he says, it doesn't matter. You can use every means to protect your democracy, your independence. Because you lose independence, you lose everything. So
Okay.
he talks
So,
about cost benefit on every subject, but not on defense.
so what you're saying is, what was the other thing I was going to mention? He says there's some self-interest behind every friendship. There's no friendship without self-interest, and that's the bitter truth. That's what you're talking about in terms of dealing with people. Is that what you said?
No. He talks to the king, two things. That is your enlightened self-interest to take care of the public. If you don't take care of them, you will be gone. Okay? But on top of that, he said, but also it's a moral duty to take care of them. That's why the concept of Raja Rishi comes in. That you have to be ethical, otherwise you will take care of just yourself and your family and all other things, and not the public. So he is very clear on that.
Done, sir. Thank you, sir. Next question by Suresh Shanai ji. Suresh Shanai, please unmute yourself. Suresh ji.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That was a very enlightening presentation. Modern democracies are built on the foundations laid by the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights after the American Revolution, which were essentially aimed at getting rid of monarchy. Whereas Chanakya, who preceded these documents by more than 1500 years, he tried to bring the monarchies together under and create an emperor of India to fight Alexander. So in that sense, how relevant do you think is Chanakya's philosophy? I'm not denying that it's not relevant. I'm just saying that.
Yes, I got your question.
Under the modern principles of democracy, where the power lies in the public rather than the monarchy, how do you think that it needs to be looked at?
Thank you.
Yes, very, very relevant question. And Kautilya is very relevant for that too. Because I wrote a paper after this insurrection in Washington. They talked about constitution. Constitution is nothing but paper. How you are going to implement it, how you are going to hold it. That's the external constraint. And in economics, we draw a lot of graphs, So I put ethics on one side and constitution on the other label. That you need both of them. With one alone, you cannot make sure that there will be a democratic system forever. It has to be with internal constraints. The public should be ethical, and the politicians, they come from the public, they will be ethical. So they talk about business ethics, medical ethics, that ethics. Well, why don't you make everybody ethical? Then you don't worry about these things. Whether they're in politics or in medicine or in engineering or wherever they are, they will be ethical. So
General Khurana, sir.
Yeah.
General Khurana ji. We'll have two more quick questions. General Khurana ji, unmute yourself.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Professor, for a very enlightening talk. As an army man who spent 40 years in uniform and fought a few wars, we did go into some of these tremendous qualities that have been brought out by you today, by Kautilya. We studied them. We tried to implement them, and we could probably do it in the army because of the hierarchical nature that we have. But my question to you is that today's world is so complex and so divided and yet so connected that you made one of the remarks which was very, I noted it, that ultimately it should be in your national interest. You said that. Now, if every nation, that is what's happening today, wants to do things in their own interest, then we are a divided world, and that's what we are today. We are a war. We are a world which is at war with each other. We are a world which is dominating the others. Now, in Kautilya's time and our wisdom of our ancient culture, probably it was simpler to implement these things because the societies were small, the world was not interconnected, the kings were enlightened. But how do you think all these today can be implemented and utilized, which is becoming very difficult when we go around and meet the youngsters today? They question this. They question these very values. Look, if we do this, then we'll be kicked out. And you take it up further in the society, in this subnational level, take India. We are not only national interest, there is subnational interest, there are regional interest. So I'd like to know from you, Professor, with your very vast study, as to how do you complement each other and these values in today's world. Thank you.
Very relevant point today, like on environment, global warming. There are some issues where it's our interest also. This is our national interest. But we cannot be ethical when our neighbors are not ethical. So this globalization takes you only so far. Only in economic terms, there is globalization, but everybody is not ethical, and we cannot impose our will on anyone else. If you can manage within our own country, that's a great thing, but we cannot impose on others. Can you do anything with China or with Pakistan or with Burma or with anyone else? We cannot impose. We have to look for our own interest. No one else is going to look for our interest. Yes, I understand that it creates tension, but that's the price you pay for your freedom, because we got to protect our freedom no matter what. That's Kautilya's basic.
Great, sir. I'm going to have two more questions.
Yeah.
One is,
Sorry,
let the question be very short question, please. Jahangir
Yes.
Sultan ji.
Yes,
Jahangir Sultan, please unmute yourself.
I'll ask one very small question.
Sir,
You see,
Jahangir
the-
Sultan.
Just wait.
One question.
Puranji, wait.
These days, you know, over here in America, the shooting is going on in schools and various places, and Constitution is on the other side, which says that you can hold guns. My question is, how would have Kautilya answered this question?
Very important thing. That's really how Kautilya will handle this situation. And Kautilya's answer is very simple, that you need both internal constraints and external constraints. If you want democracy, all we have is the Constitution. If one law is not working, make another law, and none of them works. You can have tons of laws and still not effective. So ethics, that is what in America they did, that separate the church and the state. But they forgot that religion is different than ethics. If you have ethics, then this problem we have, the cancel culture, the suspecting each other, that will not happen. And we should not really follow their tradition. We should go back to our own things, have Constitution, sure, but complement that with our ethics. Ethical norms are more important than the Constitution, because Constitution needs ethical norms. And in America, we see every day people are canceling each other. They are fighting each other. That's not this. If this continues, this democracy will not survive in America. They got to change. That division, they created a wall between state and the religion. And what that wall did, the state never looked on the other side of the wall. That what is going on. And the priests and all those other people, they were exploiting children. They were doing all kinds of nasty things. That's almost a parallel government within a same country. So that, you're right, it's very difficult. And Kautilya has a message that you need both of them.
Thank you, sir. Now, Jahangir Sultan ji, please, quick question, please. Jahangir Sultan, unmute.
I have a quick question. So you talk about ethics and morality and describe an economic system, an ideal system, but in the real world, we're facing the distortion of facts, and different people will say the same thing about the same facts. So how can you proceed with in a good economy when facts are in dispute?
Yes, yes, yes. Very important, very relevant. I'm sorry I cannot share today, but one of my papers is coming in a book on philosophy. And that's where I deal with this issue, that the society Kautilya and Chandragupta inherited. It was corrupt, unethical, everything. And with the Kautilya's advice, it became ethical. Chandragupta Maurya became a Rajrishi, an emperor, not just a small kingdom, but whole empire. So we can do it. It is not today, but if we follow the Kautilya's advice, follow ethics, we can be, not in one generation. If you look at it even in India, like before 1965, we were in the hands of those freedom fighters. They were honest. They believed in lifting the nation. But after 65, things have been going down. After 65, you could count people on fingers who were corrupt. Sukhadia, Caro, Patnaik, Viju Patnaik. You could count on fingers. Now you can count honest people on fingers. Things have changed. And it will take maybe 50 years, but if we with proper education, we can really go back to our original self. Let us dust our souls, that dirt which have been collecting for centuries. And if we are go back to our true self, believe me, we will be a different nation on the top of the world.
Great, sir. Last question from guest 17. Your name is not written. I'm sorry, guest 17.
Yeah, Manish. Yeah. Thank you. I'm Manish.
Yeah.
So,
Manish.
thank you for a great session, sir. I want to ask what Kautilya said about international trade and international economics and how it's relevant in today's world. And the second thing about economic forecasting, like has he talked about economic forecasting? Thank you.
I get quite a question. Could you repeat that, please? Someone else can repeat that.
Repeat your question, guest 17, please. Manish. Unmute. Manish.
Yeah. So I was asking what Kautilya has said about international trade and international economics and how it's relevant in today's world. And second thing I want to ask Kautilya's perspective on economic forecasting.
International trade and economic forecasting, basically. Yes. Okay.
He was very open to international trade. If we follow Kautilya, then we don't need WTO, World Trade Organization, because he likes to promote all kind of goods for the consumer. That consumers should have access to imported goods, sure. But India was very competitive. We did not have to worry about the trade deficit at all, because we could export the same thing at that time. So he was not concerned about that, but he wanted to promote trade as much as he could. And it was open system only where the defense was involved. It was very particular, not to help someone who is going to use that against us. That was his thing. And if there are rare seeds, they could come free. So there were no restrictions as such. All these restrictions, trade policies, restrictive policies, they came from the West. He was very open at that time.
Thank you very much, sir. May I request now our founder chairman, Partha Ghoshji, to kindly summarize. Parthoda.
Thank you. No, thank you very much. Professor Sia, thank you very much for very, very elaborate discussion on Kautilya. I think just to summarize, based on the questions raised, the comments made by Pranav, and then vast expose of thoughts you've shared on Kautilya, obviously, it's clear that he was a great leader. Leader in terms of thought leadership, in terms of how he shaped the Mauryan Empire. And clearly, that's something that we have to embrace in today's world. That message I got, and in embracing so, we made two very important points. Ethics should be above laws. Laws are important, but not sufficient. Ethics finally should guide us. All of us should practice it at the individual level, at the group level, at national level, at a global level. And that's something very important. And that's why we have launched this Academy of Leadership at IIT Kharagpur, to bring ethics in our thinking, ethics in our action, ethics in the way we relate with each other. The second thing that you mentioned, that public interest should be above self-interest. That was Chanakya's guiding principle. And we are happy to know that I teach a course on economics. The first lecture is all about Chanakya, Arthashastra. To teach in 3 hours, which I could teach in 3,000 years, is a big task. But you have summarized it very well when you say the Rajarshi, the sage leader, has to first earn respect by being a good person. And that is lacking today. So obviously, what we have launched in name of the Academy of Leadership, where we do not reject the Western thoughts, but we bring the Western thoughts with the Eastern thoughts, the Vedic thoughts, to create a process through which we could make the shift that the world needs. So I think today's lecture was clearly a step forward in terms of where we want to go. There are many, many steps we have to take, but clearly the world is looking for the change that Chanakya celebrated, as you mentioned, 2,500, as you say, you do not know when exactly, but let's say 2,500 years ago. And what is interesting, what Aristotle, Plato in the world of Greece was also thinking about fairness. So I think we have to establish a world which is fair, which is equitable, and that's where we have to prepare the future leaders. And you have given the key words: future leaders with foresight, future leaders with foresight, future leader with internal view, insight. Insight has got double meaning because one is insight as an integrated view, but insight. And that's what we are trying to do. We call the 3PI model. And the 3 I's are power of intellect, power of intuition, and power of interconnectedness. So I feel we are on the right track, but we need your help, guidance. We have to work with everyone who joined the meeting to take our mission forward. So thanks to all of you. And with that, I'd like to pass it back to Pranav. I will excuse myself. I have to join another meeting in a minute. So thank you very much indeed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Balbir. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Puran sir. And formally, I would like to thank Professor Singhal for such a wonderful talk. Your insights were really valuable. We take back a lot of things from this lecture. And I would say only one word: we need to look for a society which is not rights-based, but which is more of duty-based. So duty-based society, which we should look for, an ethical society. That is what we should look for as people who are looking at leadership development. So thank you very much, sir, for this wonderful insight. I would like to thank you, Partha sir, who just left, who is our founding member of the Academy. Commander Jetli, thank you very much, sir, for spending time. And Puran sir, thank you very much for calling Professor Balbir for this lecture. Your effort made this happen, so thank you for that. Our chairman, Professor Varsnik, thank you, sir. And I would also like to thank all of our wonderful audiences out here, all the participants. We keep doing these lectures regularly. In fact, next month we are planning to have a lecture with Swami Yuktamanand ji, who is the minister and spiritual leader at Ramakrishna Vivekananda Center of New York. So we are still working on getting the dates right. We will be announcing that. We keep sending mails, so we will inform you regarding this event coming up. Follow us on our social media. We are there on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. So you can follow us and you'll keep getting updates about the coming events as well. So thank you very much. Wish you all a very good day ahead.
We can have a group photograph. I'm sorry to interrupt. Maybe everyone can switch on
so
camera.
much.
Yes, if
we can have just one screenshot, a group photograph.
I request all to cameras, please, for the photo.
Yeah, switch on videos. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, the videos are going on, so I will take a minute
And now slide, please.
All right, I'm gonna click it here. So
Thank you for the opportunity.
Some more videos. Unmute your video.
You're talking to the elite group. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Wish you all a good day ahead and a good
And-
week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.